Welcome to this special edition of What's Up with Wendy's podcast, the first of 2021. So happy New Year. From the award-winning film Two Ways Home, my special guest and star of the soul-touching and moving award-winning film, its star, Tanna Frederick is joining me. You won't want to miss this. From the award-winning film Two Ways Home, it's soul-touching, it's moving. Everybody has to see it. The outpouring of love for this film, and just watching it, I'm tearing up. It was just so powerful. I'm thrilled to welcome the star, Tanna Frederick.
Oh, Wendy, that was the most generous opening I think of anybody has given us for this movie. That makes me tear up. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. And it's such an important topic. It's such an important story to tell, especially now with everything that's going on, that it's even more powerful, I think, for everybody. So important to see this film and to see how you portrayed this character. So I want to talk about her. And I also want to talk about you going home to do this film, to your hometown.
Absolutely. I thank you so much. I am so grateful to start off with to be on a show with a beautiful woman and powerful woman. In respect of making this movie about, a single mother who's facing mental health adversity. I just want to say that. Thank you. Thank you, my queen, Wendy, for having me on the show. Yeah.
I mean, this film about mental illness, bipolar, such the big issue, as we have said, but you are playing someone's daughter, someone's mother, someone's granddaughter. That's a lot, and that's a load to carry, to make sure that you portray it the way that you did. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. I mean, so I came from a smaller town in Iowa, and my mother comes from a big family of 8 siblings, and my dad's 6, and I grew up with 7 very, very strong aunts. My grandfather, who Tom Bauer's character is loosely based on, was a World War II vet, a very strong man. But, he had his own demons. He was a gunner in World War II. And I think ultimately he was a recovering alcoholic. And I think the war took its toll. And also the farming world is a tough world. And it was a tough world. And he really wanted boys. So my aunts, I mean, that's a commodity. It's not saying anything about my grandfather or his preference of boys or girls, but, it's a commodity on a farm, and they definitely were struggling as farmers. So my aunts all are incredibly strong, vocal, lovely women, some married, some not, some with children, some not. And this character, I'm so grateful to have had those women as models for myself growing up, and I really wanted this character to be a tribute to some of those incredibly very strong women that I grew up with and that I know. When you talk about writing what you know and portraying what I know really, really tough, sensitive, intelligent, hard-working women.
And you portrayed it so beautifully in this film. It's just so powerful. It was just so powerful to watch, for me to watch, and for, I'm sure, everybody that's had watched it. And the fact that you had local talent and the crew, I love that too. Because
thank you.
I mean, that must have meant a lot to you too, to go home and to be able to do that as well.
It really did. Where are you from, Wendy? I'm sorry not to know that.
It's okay. I'm in Connecticut. I was born and raised in Miami.
Wow. City girl.
So, I was born and raised in Miami, moved to New York City after college, then came to Connecticut with the kids, and here I am in Connecticut now.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, that's amazing. Are you in the country, or are you kind of in the normal burbs, or
it's like
in the city?
Burbs, but compared to being in Miami where the flat roads and the houses are close, it's kind of like, it's kind of like the country.
Yeah, you might as well be. Yeah. Oh, that's a great place to raise your kids. How cool is that? That's
It
really cool.
it is. It is. It's a great place. But so okay. So back. Tell us this. Tell us the story
Yeah.
about Two
Well,
Ways
I mean,
Home.
my upbringing was obviously really different from Miami, but the film let's see, I was approached by a neighbor about the movie, and he had written it loosely based on my grandfather and my aunts, and I just I'd grown up starting theater in Mason City, where I'm from, which is originally the Music Man town. So I had a lot, I had a lot of Meredith Wilson's hometown. So I had a lot of support artistically, a lot of musical support. I started doing children's theater when I was 9. Really hardworking adults, I think, took me under their wing and sort of held me at the same level as them, where I was put on a really strict regimen of rehearsing, and I'm really grateful for that. And I just saw I was surrounded by so much talent and not allowed to really look at myself. I don't want to say like a kid, but look at myself as a sort of less than artist. They really embraced my work ethic and gave me a lot of opportunities. So growing up, I did a lot of stage, but watched a lot of films come through the Midwest. And I think that happens a lot with these sort of flyover states where, one of my friends got cast in the movie Twister, and you could see a second of his head on the screen. He was an extra, really good actor.
Right,
And we
right.
were all like, dude, you're famous. You're famous. So, so so I really wanted to make a movie that focused on local. I mean, it was homegrown. It was local crew, held a big casting around Iowa, and it was locally cast. And the only people who I brought in was Ron Vignoni, my director, and he's a native Californian, and Christopher Pearson as my cinematographer, because I thought those guys are going to come into Iowa and they're not going to be bored with it like all of us who have grown up here are. They're going to
Right.
see it as really the magical place that it can be, and they did. They captured it so beautifully. And then Tom Bauer, who plays my grandfather beautifully in the movie, he spent all of his summers here, so he's a more or less like an Iowan by association.
One thing I love okay, so your character, she's struggling through bipolar. She's
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by characters who are trying to accept her and accept this illness and what it means in their lives and how to deal with it. Um, Everyone in this movie, just really, I can't even explain the feeling of watching this movie. I just couldn't stop watching it. It's just amazing. And
Thank you.
when people think about mental illness, they think it's dangerous, they think it's scary, and it's not that. What's the real normal? What's the real perfect anymore? We don't have that.
Yeah, amen to that, right? I mean, especially right now, where everything is so flipped on its head, in this political and socioeconomic climate. Yeah, I mean, I I feel really fortunate because my mother was a nursing professor for psychiatric nurses, and my father was provider. He was a pharmacist and they both helped to create this transition center, which was a facility which took the severely mentally ill off the street, regulated their meds with healthcare professionals, got them psychiatric, psychological help, and then put them into a housing facility while they got help, and then integrated them back into a working life where they got jobs and also housing. And so for me, I think when you're saying what is normal, growing up since I was a child with people who were had such different modes of thinking, I think it gave me a great perspective of not everybody thinks the same, and I never saw a problem with that. And then there are varying degrees of not, at times when we're in a pandemic, when the holidays are coming up, where depression can flare, where postpartum depression can be more than it was or is for some mothers, where seasonal affective disorder is coming into play. There's such varying degrees of where our brains are resting at any point in life. And the important thing for me with this film was to sort of break the stigma that is normally associated with films in which you see someone with mental health issues as being a serial killer, or you see them being so far down in their situation and in their illness that there's just no conceivable hope in the media, how the media has portrayed them, that they're going to get better. Or you see them as a comic book character, or you see some misnomer of what mental health is. And in reality, it's just kind of like a slow underlying place that our neurons are at, and we all are in it together. And we need to talk about it. We need to get support. We need to be our own heroes, unfortunately, a lot of times with it. And I think this character is.
So you had such close personal connection to this from being around it for so much. I think that probably helped you tremendously in this film, and in being able to portray it so beautifully and so real and so moving. And it's just, once again, if you just, I'm talking to the star, she plays Kathy in Two Ways Home, Tanna Frederick. So everyone has to see this film. It's just, was it hard for you to get this film going?
Thank you again, Wendy, for supporting it. I just really, really thank you so much. I'm so grateful. It was hard to, it was a tricky, it's a tricky balancing act to make a film about mental health and also post-traumatic stress disorder. And then at the same time, just make a movie about a movie and know if it has about a story and know if it has legs. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, how do you make a film that's going to hopefully help people, hopefully let them walk away feeling less alone, hopefully, resonate with something that hits so many people, which is, mental health. And then at the same time, just tell a story without sort of shouting your cause from the rafters. I mean, that's a tricky one. So in that sense, yeah, it was tricky, but Ron Vignoni was a great director, and also edited the entire film and really had his thumb the whole way on not making it cliche and making it, and really giving this woman a lot of pride. And really, really, Ron says his reason for making this was to take the shame out of somebody's condition. And I think,
you both, Ron is here too. So I want Ron to say something and welcome him to the show as well. And he gave your character so much pride. It gushed with it. I can't even say enough about how touched I was by this film. So Ron, tell us, I mean, tell us a little bit.
Well, first of all, thank you for welcoming me into the show. That's really sweet of you and kind, and thank you for your support, like Tanna says, and all your very kind words. I think that Tanna is spot on in terms of, we try to humanize Kathy's character, and be honest. I mean, that's what it breaks down to. We were trying to be honest at every level, and not to make a caricature of something, of a person, but instead follow this person struggling in ways that we all can relate to. And yet, at the same time, one of the conflicts that she's up against is these newly found mental health challenges. And I think that provided the weave of the story that Tanna was aptly talking about in terms of